Dragons have descended upon Battlegrounds, and boy has it been an exciting week. A total of 7 new heroes and 18 new cards were released, which completely changed the meta. How strong are the new heroes? Are dragons a dominant tribe in the field? Is Deathwing the best out of the bunch? Let's talk about it. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel and to turn notifications on to keep up with our Hearthstone content. Now let's begin. Keep in mind this is our first impression, and heroes could become stronger or worse as the meta stabilizes. Deathwing is likely the strongest new hero in this update. Although the hero power affects both sides of the board, you are the only player building your board every turn to make the most use of the hero power. Deathwing currently excels the most in the early and mid game. There are a lot of tier 1 and 2 minions that work well with the hero power. The strongest minion to note is Rat Pack. Even if your opponent has synergy with your hero power, you are actively buying minions every turn that synergize with it. Oftentimes, you end up tying in the early game, which saves you a lot of HP. In Battlegrounds, a hero with premium early game effects tends to do very well as you can tier up more aggressively. Based on first impressions, Deathwing benefits the most from a final composition involving beasts or mechs. Next up we have Galakrond. At first glance, the hero resembles Toki quite a bit. Unlike Toki though, you have to target the minion you want to replace. This means in the next turn, you can target that minion again and have an even higher tier minion. Some players have theorized you can do this from turn 1 and have a tier 6 minion around 8 gold. However, memes will be memes. If you commit to this strategy, you end up spending 5 gold on this hero power alone when you could have used it to tier up and or buy minions. Neglecting early game tempo is the biggest reason players end up in the bottom 4, so we do not recommend this strategy. Other than that, the hero feels too similar with Toki to really stand out. If anything, the hero power incentivizes more suboptimal play by gambling on high rolls, so Toki should still perform better. Ysera is a disappointing hero. The Dragon Queen feels eerily similar to Maleficent and Lord Jaraxxus, and that you're forced into a tribe. Unlike Tyrion, its hero power is not strong enough for you to force the archetype. In this first week, tons of players will try to force dragons as well, which means there are even less dragons in the pool. Keep in mind also that the hero power will not generate dragons higher than your current tier. Malygos and Nozdormu are the next 2 heroes. These two are very similar with one another and are quite balanced in their designs. Nozdormu is also very similar to Bartendotron, but does the job better. Bartendotron saves you about 5 gold for the entire game, while Nozdormu remains relevant in the late game. Like Bart, Nozdormu also shares the advantage of being able to roll and buy on the same turn as you tier up. This is quite relevant for the first 4 tiers. Malygos is another hero that manipulates rerolls. The advantage here is increasing your chances to find key minions from the same tier. Again, it's a hero power that is relevant at all stages of the game because it is free. In the early game, you're more likely to find triples and keep up with tempo. An interesting tidbit is that the hero power can also target minions you already own. The issue, however, is that if the minion had a battle cry, it will not trigger with this hero power. In summary, we expect both Nozdormu and Malygos to perform better as the meta eventually becomes more aggressive. Alexstrasza is a very unique hero. The hero power reminds us of AFK, but happens later in the game. Some of the new dragons have insanely good late game scaling, which can win the lobby the earlier you find them. One of the criticisms of this hero power is how useless it is before you reach tier 5. This is an accurate trade-off to the potential high rolls you can get with the hero power. It's also important to note that forcing dragons from the get-go is not an optimal strategy. You still want to maximize your tempo gains, but you will prefer dragons when you hit the mid-game. We predict that Alex will be a bit inconsistent to make it to the S tier. Nonetheless, it is at least a fun hero because it offers a very different playstyle. Lastly, we have Reno Jackson. Although his hero power may seem broken at first glance, it suffers the same issue that George has. Because the hero power is so costly, you usually only want to activate it in the mid to late game on specific minions. Obviously, in an ideal world, you are able to triple your Kaboom bots into a Baron Rivendare, and Reno will do the rest. However, because there are so many heroes that excel in the early game, Reno Jackson will often be ruthlessly pounded before he snowballs with the hero power. The only minion that can cut your tempo loss is Soul Juggler. If you can get one immediately on tier 3, you are able to dominate the mid game and deal a ton of damage. However, like most late game heroes, Reno relies too much on early game RNG to avoid dying. Now that we talked about all the heroes, let's talk briefly about the new cards introduced. 18 new cards have been added, while 9 old cards have been removed. Without even looking at the new cards, we know that having more cards in the pool means you will be punished even more by forcing archetypes early. Dragons are the new tribe introduced, but how viable are they? We find most key dragons are at least Beast tier 5 and up. If your first triples give you Razorgore or Kalikos, this is when you should pivot to dragons. Upgrading to tier 6 should be done relatively early once you find these minions, because you must hit Nadina and more Kalikos to scale harder. We find early game dragons to be mostly underwhelming. Wax Rider Togwaggle obviously synergizes well with Redwhelp, but acts like scavenging hyena for beasts. Having it in the early game is fine, but you should be throwing it away as soon as you get Kalikos or Nadina. We will likely talk about dragons in a separate video in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. Other than dragons, a very important minion added to the pool is Unstable Ghoul. As a tier 2 minion, this minion can wipe a board of tokens early and destroy divine shields in the late game. With Unstable Ghoul and Nadina, a dragon comp can theoretically top Murlocs. We are very excited to continue experimenting with the meta and are eagerly waiting to see what heroes and comps end up on top. What have you experienced in the new patch? What was the craziest dragon board you've seen? Let us know in the comments below. As always, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date with our Hearthstone content. We'll see you next time.